Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, the 1955 window here, we're doing a little quick update video today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you around the cab real quick, show you what I'm going to do. It needs final sand before we can go to color and clear. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I'm going to walk you around and kind of show you what I plan on doing to get this thing ready. And then hopefully we'll knock this out today or tomorrow, and then we'll be that much closer to getting the doors and the cab in color. So let's just jump right in here and do a walk around. Okay, the cab inside and out is really ready for final sand. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is unmask the skirt on the bottom that we masked around there when we were spraying primer to protect the undercoating. That's all starting to fall off anyway, so we're going to pull all that off because I plan on wet sanding this cab on the exterior. Now the interior, we're just going to go ahead and dry sand with 400 and get it nice and smoothed out. So all of this up and around the windows is going to get sanded. And of course the dash, and then the kick panels down there, and the seat skirt. So that's all going to get sanded and ready to go for some black. And then on the exterior, we're going to, what I'm going to do first is hit it with some 320 with my little air kind of a jitterbug sander right here. And I'll do all the big flat panels with that just to try to speed it up a little bit. And 320 on that will be more like 400 because when you put it on a machine, it really makes it a finer sand. So that's going to be done. And then, you know, I got to unmask all this up in here. And this truck will get a thoroughly good wash inside and out when I'm done sanding and I'm happy. Now, if I run into anything, any problems or whatever, I'll just note them. And then we'll keep sanding and cleaning and everything. And then if I have to go back and make a repair or spot prime or something like that, I'll just keep track of all of them. And then I'll just get the gun out again. That's what you got to do, you know. So I'll have to backtrack a little bit, then let it set up, and then sand it again. So right now we're going to start just with the quick dry sanding inside. And I'm going to show you exactly how I go ahead and do that. Just really quick, I'm going to show you the technique, and then we're going to move on. Okay, so we're inside the cab, and I'm going to sand all this dry with 400 like I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of shapes inside here, you know, on the dash and even on the back here behind the seat. There's a lot of, you know, contours to this thing. So what I'll do is when I sand it with the 400, I got a fresh piece of 400 right here, quarter sheet, and I cut a Scotch-Brite pad just about the size of that. So it'll fit down inside here, and I just fold it over. And so when I'm sanding this thing, I know that I'm not putting a bunch of fingerprints all over the place. If you sand with just your hand and a piece of sandpaper, it's just really the first part right where your fingerprints are, you know, that you're pushing down. No matter how hard you try, that's really all you're doing. So you're not utilizing sandpaper as well as you should, and you could sand finger lines in here. And I've actually seen that on finished cars, so don't think it's not a thing. It's kind of hard to believe, but it happens. So I just fold it up, and we're going to be able to sand down inside here. And now I can push my hand down on here, and the Scotch-Brite pad actually spreads out the load a little bit and helps me do a better job sanding. And I'm a lot more efficient that way too. So that really works well for me. I'm going to go around this whole thing and get all this sanded. And then we're going to move out to the outside real quick, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use the little jitterbug sander to try to get most of the exterior flattened out. What we're shooting for on the exterior is just get the orange peel off. That way I can go take it outside and do some wet sanding with some 400 and 600. So I'm going to bust this out real quick, and I'll bring you back. Okay, I got all the interior sanded. My finger's a little sore between the Scotch-Brite pad and sanding all the biggest, smoothest areas. And then, you know, you just got to get down there with your thumbs and your fingers to get all the nooks and crannies and get the seams and everything. But it's all sanded, looks great. I'm really happy. I was going to move over and just start sanding, dry sanding the whole big panel with the jitterbug here, but yesterday I checked up on top, tried to blow it off, and it was really filthy dirty. I've been rolling this thing outside of the shop when I'm working on other stuff, and there's a couple of big eucalyptus trees here, and they're just full of easily 100 hummingbirds, and I'm not exaggerating. They love those trees, and I think they pooped on it. Even hummingbirds poop. So there's little tiny spots of something up there, so I rolled this thing outside, got my wash mitt out, and I scrubbed this thing a couple of times, rinsed it off really well, dried it with a towel, blew it out with the air hose, and just parked it out in the sun for 2 or 3 hours to let it bake and dry up. So it's ready to go now. So now we're just going to jump over. I got some 320 on my jitterbug right here. So I'm just going to jump up here and I'm going to do all the large areas I can get. Whatever I could do with this, I'm going to do it. Now I want to be careful to make sure this is flat, and you know, I'm just sanding nice in big areas, not pushing this thing on its edge. Now some guys will use a DA. Now I'm not a fan of DAs. They're great for some things, and I use them more of a rough tool. I don't use it for a finishing tool. You can put fine sandpaper on them, and I actually DA clear before I polish. But that's using 1200 grit, and it's got a special pad on it and everything else. But you can actually sand waves or ripples or even lines into your finished primer or paint using a DA. So you have to be very careful. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you have a higher chance of messing up using a DA. So this is nice and flat. It's just like a block. So and it'll sand up here really nice, and I can do the whole back of the cab here and some of these other areas, and then I'll just switch over and do it by hand. So I'm going to jump to this real quick. We're going to blow it off, see where we stand, and then hopefully we can roll this thing outside and do some wet sanding with some 400 and 600. Give this thing a good bath, and we're going to be really close to getting some color and clear on this thing. Okay, I'm all done sanding with the 320 dry. It feels really smooth. It's coming out really nice. I'm really excited about getting this thing done. But once I was done with the air sander, I just did the big areas. I didn't try to get too close over here because that thing will get away from you, and then you go bouncing off something, and then you got to fix it. So you got to be really careful. I don't care if you use a DA or a little jitterbug sander like that or whatever. Just stay away from stuff and then just finish by hand. And so what I like to use is these foam blocks. Now, you know, I wasn't a big fan of these. You know, they come with grit on them, but I don't really use the grit part of it. I use it because of the way it's shaped. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that there, but this little angle right here is excellent for getting into areas like you just wrap the sandpaper around it like that, and I'm able to get down around the drip edge here and sand down inside there. It's really helpful. Not to mention, it's foam, but it's pretty rigid foam. So when I'm sanding around these round corners and everything, I can push down fairly firm, and then know that I'm not digging in, or I'm not just sanding on one little tiny area. So it really comes in handy. I was able to get down all these body lines around these curves, everything, just with this block. So I recommend you guys get one. They're not very expensive, and like I said, they come with grit on them, but I use it as a sanding block, not as the sandpaper part of it. So it comes in really handy. So I blew it off real well. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I went through the primer in a few spots, a little bit of blue showing here and there. I'm not concerned about it. We can spray the base coat right over that. It's not like any metal or any body filler or anything showing. So we'll see where we land when we're done wet sanding them all the way out. If there's a couple areas of concern, I'll spot prime them. This is not the time to start cutting corners. We've done a lot of hard work on this thing. Waiting a couple of more days to get some color and clear on it is not that big a deal. And if you're working out of your garage or whatever, I know you get excited, want to get things done just like me, but just slow down a little bit and take your time, and you'll be glad you did later. So I'm going to roll this thing outside and start wet sanding it. I'm really not going to show you guys any of that. We're going to do some 400 and go over the whole thing, and that'll take all the sand scratches out from the 320. And then we'll go over it really quick with the 600 just to take make it that much smoother. So I'm going to roll outside and take care of that, and then we're going to wash it really well, rinse it, wash it, rinse it, and then blow it out, dry it off with a towel, do everything to get as dry as possible, then roll it far away from the trees to park it out in the sun and let it dry. So let me get to this right now, and hopefully I'll get this thing ready for color and clear today. Okay, all done wet sanding. The truck has been washed twice with a wash mitt and just plain dish soap. I don't know if you can tell. You can see the primer is shiny right over here. That's the way the whole thing looks. So when you hit it with that 600, it really does make it really super smooth. And that's what the base coat wants. So it came out great. Washed it twice, like I said, with dish soap and the wash mitt. Rinsed it thoroughly multiple times to make sure everything was off of it. Dried it with a towel. Dried all the little stuff. Blew all the nooks and crannies out with compressed air. And just went over it over and over and over again. Make sure it was nice and dry and clean. And then I parked it out in the sun for, I was out there 3 hours before I brought it back in. The sun beat down on it, dried it out really nicely. As you can see, I did go through. There's some blue showing here and there, but I'm not concerned about it. If this primer, which has acetone in it, did not lift the old finish, the base coat resin will not do it. So I'm not concerned about it at all. As you can see, the cab is looking really nice. Look inside there, that's all been washed, sanded, cleaned. It's ready to go. So I'm really excited about getting this thing to the next step. We've done a lot of work on this, not as much as some of you guys. You saw me sending me pictures of your cabs that are just rusted really badly. This thing was in pristine condition. I was kind of spoiled on this. I realized that seeing all the pictures you guys send in. So it's looking really good, and we are that much closer to color and clear. Okay, that just about wraps up this project for the day. Before I go any farther, I want to thank everybody that has subscribed so far. Thank you so much. I've done better than I had imagined in 6 months I've been doing this. And I also really want to thank all you guys sending in your projects. It's really cool to see what you guys are working on, and I like sharing it at the end of the video. It takes me a little bit longer to edit, but it's really worth it. And I really love seeing what you guys are up to and what you guys are, the challenges you face. I'm spoiled on this thing compared to what you guys are working on. I'm really impressed with the work you're doing, and it looks fantastic in your garages or your shops. Anybody can do it, and that's the whole premise of this channel. You can do it. If I can do it in this little shop, you can do it in your garage. I promise. So the next step for this truck is painting the interior. But before I do that, I want to just go on one little point here about wet sanding. Now, my climate here is pretty dry and pretty warm. So I can wet sand this thing. It's still not even spring here. It got to 72 degrees today. So I was able to wet sand it, wash it inside and out, dry it, blow it off, get all the seams dry, and then park it out in the sun for 3 hours and let it bake. I still won't consider doing any work on this cab for a couple more days to make sure everything's thoroughly dry. The last thing you want is some hidden moisture down inside somewhere, and then you top coat it, and then that water moisture sits down in there and starts rusting, causes a blister or some other catastrophe later when you're done. So be patient if you're going to wet sand. If it's really humid where you're at and the sun doesn't come out and really warm up, I would just stick with dry sanding, which is perfectly fine. I like wet sanding. It gives me a lot of production, lets me see what's going on, and I can move very quickly. And I always wash the vehicle anyways before I move on to color and clear, because I like using water to get these things dust free, and that's important to me. Most of the dust and dirt that get on your paint jobs come from the vehicle itself. They don't come, from your shop or whatever. It comes off the vehicle. You'll make a pass and it'll blow out of a nook and cranny, right onto your paint. So keep that in mind. But all in all, this cab is coming out really great. So thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I'm doing well, but I could do better on subscribers, so come on guys, hit that button and mash that bell icon so you get notifications every time I release a new video. We'll see you on the next one.